Buckle up and join the best. Let Citi relieve your stress. So yes, let the music soothe your soul and keep it going just to refresh. Buckle and enjoy the ride from 2 to the half of the 5. Mondays to Fridays happening live. Where we gon' have a ball, you can text your guys. Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. On us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. An applause for the Traffic Avenue.
Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue. Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, Traffic Avenue, oh yeah.
Buckle up and join the best. Let Citi relieve your stress. So yes, let the music soothe your soul and keep it going just to refresh. Buckle and enjoy the ride from 2 to the half of the 5. Mondays to Fridays happening live. Where we gon' have a ball, you can text your guys. Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. Are you ready for the Traffic Avenue? Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. An applause for the Traffic Avenue.
Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue. Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, Traffic Avenue, oh yeah.
Buckle up and join the best. Let Citi relieve your stress. So yes, let the music soothe your soul and keep it going just to refresh. Buckle and enjoy the ride from 2 to the half of the 5. Mondays to Fridays happening live. Where we gon' have a ball, you can text your guys. Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. Are you ready for the Traffic Avenue? Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. An applause for the Traffic Avenue.
Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue. Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you.
Detailed news, unparalleled coverage. City News on 97.3 FM.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
City News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Eyewitness News live from our studios here at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. My name is Selorm, Adonoo, and tonight I'm here with
Akosua, Otchere.
Coming up over the next 90 minutes, tension mounts in Boku following the alleged killing of some 10 residents of the area by the military. Military denies the allegation, but 5 MPs from the area raised serious concerns about the incident. We'll tell you more later. And also on Eyewitness News, deadlock persists. MPP National Executive Council meeting to decide dates for the party's presidential and parliamentary primaries for the second time in 24 hours ends in stalemate. What are the issues and what are the interests? And really, what does the party's constitution say? We'll break it all down for you tonight on Eyewitness News. And later, we'll bring you updates on meeting between NETCO and UDS management following that incident where security officers at the University for Development Studies yesterday detained NETCO staff who went there to disconnect their power supply. Stay with 97.3 Citi FM for more on this and other stories on Eyewitness News and in business.
Government assures plans are far advanced to revive operations of Tema Oil Refinery.
There is more business in the next 50 minutes. Eyewitness News is live across the country on all our affiliates and around the globe at citinewsroom.com. Your comments are welcome via our WhatsApp line 0549 986 996. You can follow me on Twitter at Selorm Adonoo. The hashtag, as always, is Citi Newsroom. Akosua gives us our very first story.
The Member of Parliament for Boku Central, Mahama Yaraga, is seeking a 500,000 cedis compensation for families of 10 people who were killed this week in Boku. He has thus petitioned the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice over what he terms as several acts of violation of human rights by the military. He wants Shraj to investigate the death of the 10 people who were allegedly killed by the Ghana Armed Forces. He also indicates that the rights of women and children have been violated. He's therefore seeking 3 remedies. This includes 500,000 cedis compensation. He also wants members of the Ghana Armed Forces to be restrained from further acts of brutalities in Boku as they exercise their duties to maintain peace in the area. Lastly, he wants adequate compensation for those who have suffered physical harm as a result of the alleged brutalities. And also still on this matter, divisional chiefs of the Kusol traditional area in Boku are calling for the urgent measures to end acts of criminality in the area before the situation escalates. Addressing a press conference in Boku, the 25 divisional chiefs said they would be compelled to defend themselves if government doesn't take urgent steps to end violent and criminal activities. Patrick Adakurugu is spokesperson for the Kusol traditional area.
Extreme provocations, our overlord has constantly admonished us to prevail on our subjects to be peaceful. In fact, but for his exceptional patience and commitment to peace, the conflict in Boku would have escalated to an unimaginable proportions. It is in this context of the above that we wish to express our deep concern about the continuous spate of lawlessness and killing of innocent civilians, while we remain loyal and commitment to the orders of our overlord, His Royal Eminence, the Bokunaba, the Zugran. We wish to point out that there is a limit to what the patience and the peace commitment of our overlord do to restore peace in Boku. This is why we are calling for urgent steps to be taken to bring an end to the criminal acts of violence in our traditional capital.
Patrick Adakurugu is spokesperson for Kusol Traditional Council.
And Colonel Festus Abuaje is also a security analyst. He joins us to help us appreciate from his viewpoint what has been happening in the area and what can be done to bring down the tensions currently brewing in the Boku community. Hello, good evening, sir. Welcome to Eyewitness News. Some of your colleagues have described the Boku area as a war zone. How bad is the situation from there, from your briefing and everything you know about the area, given what's happening?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think that expression is a euphemism, using or describing the situation like, in war. But technically speaking, as well as legally speaking, constitutionally speaking, there is no war anywhere on the territory of Ghana. The government has not declared a state of emergency to that effect. So what's happening is that the conflict is escalating, resulting in destruction of life and property. It may look like the security forces are getting a bit frustrated because there's no conventional warfare. The groups that are involved in the ethnic dispute or conflict are not conventional forces, and sometimes it's a bit difficult for the military in that kind of situation, to use conventional tactics to address the situation. I've had occasion to explain that the situation in Boku in Ghana Armed Forces terms, is an internal security situation. It is not war at all. It's not terrorism, although there may be the threat of jihadist terrorism and so on and so forth. I think my concern is about the other side of the military campaign, which is the information campaign, that it behoves the military not necessarily to issue press releases explaining what has happened, why they have responded in whichever way. But when you conduct a coordinate search operation, it's based on an item of intelligence. And there must be evidence at the end of the operation to justify that activity. I've had occasion to also link this recent activity to Ayawaso West Program. That if indeed there were armed elements with military-grade weapons, and therefore the military cordoned the area, at the end of it, at the end of the search, coordinate search operation, the military must retrieve weapons. And they must present those weapons, just as they have issued a press statement, in order to win the information campaign. It is not sufficient to just write on a piece of paper that we engage people who were sporadically firing their weapons and we neutralize them. It's not sufficient. Indeed, this is not even a matter of simply subjecting the situation to, let's say, investigations. Our training is a case that must be presented in court for the military or the security forces to justify the use of force. Remembering that we are not at war, we are not fighting an aggressor state. It's an internal security situation involving citizens belonging to different ethnic groups in one geographical locality.
So
I'm a bit concerned.
Yes, I get a concern. So am I to understand from what you've said so far that it doesn't appear that the military, from what you know, has the evidence to justify the so-called operation?
If they have, then I don't want to put myself into that conflict. Any conflict, in fact, any activity that the military conducts in a democracy must have at least two dimensions. It must have the technical military dimension. It must also have the information dimension, i.e. the information campaign. And you can reinforce your information activity by presenting the evidence. So at the end of the coordinate search operation, we saw dead bodies that the military say were neutralized. That's fine. But where are the weapons that these people were using to fire sporadically? And indeed, I've also explained that a military intervention should not necessarily be that a group is firing their weapons sporadically and therefore need to be neutralized. It must be that the fire coming or emanating from the weapon are destroying life and property, in which case, even without any state of emergency or whatever, anybody bearing weapons becomes a law enforcement officer, and upon reasonable grounds that life and property are being destroyed, can use the weapons that they have, to, if you like, neutralize those people. So far, the narratives of the press releases from both the armed forces and the civil authorities have not actually laid solid grounds, to point to people armed and killing, other citizens. And that's a concern for me. One, because the state at all times must not be seen to be violating human rights. That's a fundamental principle in a democracy, which is what we say we are. Secondly, in this kind of operation, any death that occurs, any use of force against any party is likely to push them to the extreme. And as you have said, or some people have said, we have this jihadist terrorism echoing of our northern borders. So those jihadists can exploit the Boko conflict, or parties to the Boko conflict can align themselves with other forces outside of the country, either in Burkina Faso or Togo, in order, to win whichever local conflict that they have. So we need to be extremely careful that we don't allow the situation in Boko, to become regionalized, if it were, as it were, and to get to a state where, we end up killing, let me say, innocent citizens.
I see. Very interesting, comments from you. But the military also say that they had a tip-off from the National Investigations Bureau, and a lot of the things they did were based on that tip-off. So there were a number of events. So they described that as the first event. There was another event also, which they describe as a separate incident, sporadic firing being heard at Sabongari general area, where a patrol team dispatched to assess the situation spotted unknown armed men at Gozesi Valley side in the area, wearing black T-shirts, etc. So they perhaps they felt that these guys were a threat to them, and once these guys were trying to engage them, they had to return fire, and their return of fire led to their death, and maybe that was what it was. I'm not sure the military would want to endure fire from the armed men whilst they will not return fire.
It's not as simple as that. In a layman's view, you could argue as you are arguing. If indeed any party directs fire at any other group of persons, there must be evidence to that effect. Either one of the military members or security forces members suffered casualty. There must be that evidence. But critically, in this instance, wearing of black T-shirts and blazing with whatever symbols do not make you an armed group. You see, carrying of weapons, yes, will be prohibited under the circumstances. But carrying the weapons and firing the weapons without destroying life and property will not justify the use of force that ends up with 6 or 8 or 10 people dead. So, for the military to actually justify the use of force that they used in neutralizing that group, they must present evidence. And that evidence will be the military-grade weapons that these persons in black T-shirts were armed with. You see, otherwise, let me even branch off and say that in such operations as indeed we have found in peacekeeping operations and so on, look, you can get all manner of so-called intelligence. Each party to the conflict in Boko can present what appears on the surface to be intelligence, but that will not be intelligence. Now, intelligence also doesn't mean that any type of operation that is conducted on the basis of that intelligence is justifiable. Upon that intelligence, you now need to design, a tactical approach. And that tactical approach must be informed by international law and the laws of this country, as well as by the tactics and procedures of the security forces in question, which are actually designed to be consistent with international law in protecting human rights and not abusing or violating them or protecting, So I find a bit of gaps in the press release from the military. And the main reason why I have drawn that conclusion is that as of now, or as of yesterday, there was no hard evidence to suggest that any party in that conflict within the past 24, 48 hours was armed and was attacking the military.
I see. So the problem on the ground really is that there's mounting tension, growing mistrust between the people and the military people, placed there to assist them, work around a peaceful resolution to the matters. How do we de-escalate the tension building? Who must speak? What must happen? Traditional elders or leaders have begun speaking,
Yes.
but we are not
Yes.
sure if that will be enough to bring down the tensions. How do we deal with the growing mistrust, and how do we bring down the tension in the area?
So, yesterday I had occasion on another platform to explain that in this kind of environment, you need to build trust and confidence. And one of the time-tested confidence-building measures is to establish structures that involve the participation of the parties to the conflict. So even the patrols that are being conducted in that environment must be patrols in which the Kusasis, let me say, and the Mamprusis, let me say, are part of. You see. Secondly, it is not only the use of force that can resolve the conflict. So there is another mechanism, and that mechanism is conciliation and negotiation. So once you get on the ground, you establish structures which bring together the leaders of the groups, the traditional leaders, certain, role model, what do you call them, opinion leaders, and so on. So when you have the intelligence at a certain level, either at the level of the political authority, that would be the regional minister or whoever, as well as at the level of the head of the security forces, you quickly relay the information that has been received to the leaders that have been constructed as a mechanism. But that is very, very important. Look, this conflict in Boku can never be resolved. And the history shows that before independence, it was there.
But that's quite a categorical statement coming from you, that it can never be resolved.
No. It can never be resolved with the use of force. That was the point I wanted to make.
Very well.
And therefore, that conciliation and the mediation and the negotiation are essential components of resolving ethnic conflicts. So otherwise, you end up, indeed, per international law, that's the position of the Amnesty International and so on. The Ghana Armed Forces or the security forces have become a party to the conflict. Anybody who intervenes in a third-party role, armed and uses force, in some international law context, becomes a party. And the state cannot be a party to a local conflict involving indigenes who are citizens. You see, so we need to be very, very careful in a democracy how we use force. And let me emphasize that the Boku conflict and any conflict for that matter can never be resolved through the use of force alone. Of course, you and I know that there are political undertones to the conflict. There is academic research to that effect. And sometimes, depending on who is in power, one faction feels empowered in order to attack the other. So there are many, many dimensions of this conflict, and it's not very simple to deploy a security force that goes around, without hard evidence, killing citizens. Remember in one of the Kukumba Nanumba conflicts, there were weapons, military-grade weapons, that were flying around. Some soldiers even left their barracks to go and join the conflict. And therefore, when the military deployed the force, it screened all the members to ensure that members of the armed forces who originated from that area were excluded from the security force. These are all mechanisms to try and, stop those kinds of ethnic sentiments from within the armed forces impacting on the conflict. These are my perspectives.
Yes.
I think the situation is getting out of hand.
I see. We are grateful for your time and for your insights on this matter. We thank you so much for speaking to us on Eyewitness tonight. So that was Colonel Festus Abuaji, who's a security analyst, helping us appreciate the matters from a security expert's point of view. Let's stay on this matter and talk to the Honourable Cletus Apoka, who is MP for Drebila in the Upper East region. Himself and a few of his colleagues in Parliament yesterday condemned the incident. And let's speak to him really on what has changed and what the expectations are of officialdom in respect of this matter. Hello, good evening, sir. Welcome to Eyewitness News. What can you tell us about the situation on the ground right now?
Fortunately, the situation on the ground is quite calm. Yesterday and today, there have not been heard of gunfire. That is normally the practice in the township, particularly in the night. So the situation for these 2 days have been calm.
I see.
But this is an easy calm, very, very uneasy calm. The people in the Boku traditional area are living in fear. The people are angry, and they are frustrated. And when you have a frustrated and angry people in the conflict area, the least thing sparks of conflict. So that is why we are calling on government to set a committee to investigate the barbaric acts of the Ghana Armed Forces who are on peacekeeping duties there. And at the end of the day, use all types of methods that they have at their disposal to be able to bring this conflict to an end.